Now, around each of these massive megalithic taula structures, there's always a kind of circle of stones. There's an enclosure that goes around them. In this particular enclosure, this part is original. It's the original initial part of the enclosure, whereas the other side was broken and it's been rebuilt. But from this side, we can understand quite a lot of things. So one of the first important things to realize is that this thing gives shadows, and that because it's very, very thin here, when the sun is due east, then the shadow will be very thin. So at sunrise at equinox, for example, when the sun rises exactly at the east, the shadow will be very thin and will come exactly towards these stones here. Okay, now that's at sunrise. So as the sun rises, it goes towards the south, and so the shadow will go in this direction on the walls behind. But because of the width of the taula, the shadow will slowly get wider and wider as we go round. And then when we get to midday, the shadow will have the width of the taula directly behind it. And then as the sun gets down and starts to set, then the shadow will be projected onto the other wall, which has now disappeared. So that's at equinox. But what happens on summer solstice, for example, the longest day of the year? At summer solstice, the sun here rises in this direction. And so at sunrise at summer solstice, the shadow of the taula will come onto this zone here. Okay, it'll have a certain width because we're at an angle with respect to the taula. So it will come to about here. Like these are like screens that the shadow comes onto, and you can get specific dates. And then as the sun rises, it will go towards the south. And so this time the shadow will do a much longer path, going all the way around here, coming down to a thin part here as the sun goes across the east, and then getting wider again as the sun goes towards the south. Now at winter solstice, the sunrise will be in this direction. So the shadow of the taula will come onto these stones, and it will be a much smaller movement of the shadow at winter solstice. So this incredible megalithic structure in an enclosure can create a calendar of the movement of the sun during the day and over the year. But also, because it has a capstone at the top, there's a shadow which is projected onto this vertical plane. You can see it here. It's rather irregular. The sun isn't due south. It's coming in at an angle at the time being here. So we're at a solar time of about 9:30, and as the sun rises and comes due south, when the sun gets due south, then the shadow of the capstone will create a straight line along the support stone at a certain height. So at summer solstice, the shadow will be the longest because the sun is the highest, and then at winter solstice, the shadow will be the smallest because the sun is the lowest. So the shadow on here will give us the best measurement system at summer solstice, around summer solstice, and the longest days in the year, because this is a perpendicular shape with respect to positioning with respect to the height of the sun. Now behind the taula there is a stone here, which is this standing stone here. Okay, so this stone will be hit by the winter solstice right at the top. So when the sun is at its lowest at midday to the south, then the shadow will hit the top of this stone. Now that's the angle of a double square here at this latitude. At winter solstice, a stone, say 1 meter high, gives a shadow of 2 meters in length. And that only happens at this latitude. So that's a very particular thing. And as we go from winter solstice towards equinox, the sun gets higher and higher in the sky, and the shadow will get lower and lower. So at equinox, the shadow at midday at equinox will be at the base of the stone. So this stone here will also be a measurement of the time passing between winter solstice at the top and equinox at the bottom. So coming back to the winter solstice sunrise here at Trepuco, we'll see that as the sun rises over here on the shortest day of the year, the shadow of this side of the taula will hit this stone here. So the shadow will come along here and hit this side, and the shadow of the other side of the stone will hit this stone. So at winter solstice, as the sun rises, the whole of this area will be in the shadow of the taula. And then as the sun rises, the shadow will move. Now what's important to realize is that here at Menorca, the angle of the winter solstice sunrise is exactly 31.72 degrees south of east-west line, which is only the case here in Menorca. I took this date at the date of 850 BC, which is the supposed date of the beginning of these Taoitic constructions, or the middle. So that's the exact angle of what's called a golden rectangle. So if we have a shape which is 1 north-south and 1.618, the golden ratio east-west, that gives us an angle in that triangle of 31.72 degrees, and that is the exact angle of the sunrise at winter solstice south of the east-west line. So when the sun rises at winter solstice, it's as if this shadow is projected over the whole of Menorca, because from here at Trepuco in the southeast corner of the island, the solstice line goes right across the whole of Menorca, right up to the northwest coast. So that's a very interesting fact, very important fact to understand, and I believe it must have been one of the reasons which led the people here to build these fantastic monuments all over the island. Now, behind me, this stone which is lit up at winter solstice has a very specific shape, very square, rectangular shape. And so we decided to measure it. We discovered that its average height was 1.23 meters, its width 1.64 meters, and its diagonal from this corner up to this corner 2.05 meters. Now those are the ratio of a 3-4-5 triangle. So this square is 3 units by 4 units by 5 units on the diagonal. Now, having worked a lot on Karnak and the fact that the winter solstice sunrise at Karnak is the angle of a 3-4-5 triangle, I can easily imagine that this is a kind of reminder of the origin of this astrogeometrical installation. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please like and subscribe by clicking on the link just here on my photo. And you can share the links, of course, with all your friends so that more people can understand the beauty of this forgotten knowledge which seems to have disappeared from our planet. Bye-bye.